Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about soda ash. Soda ash is like the nemesis of cold process soap making, and it's just something that can be so frustrating. You've spent all this time making this lovely bar of soap, and then you find it covered with soda ash. So today we're going to talk about what it is, how you can prevent it, and what you can do if it decides to come anyway. So grab your coffee and let's chat about soda ash. First of all, soda ash. What is it? Soda ash is this white film that can form on the top of cold processed soap bars. It is the lye. When the lye is still active, it reacts with the carbon dioxide in the air and pulls some of that carbon out and forms now, it's not sodium hydroxide, but sodium carbonate on the top of the bar. So that's what you're seeing here. It happens when that active lye, when the soap is still soft, reacts with the stuff in the air, pulls it down onto the bar, and that's what you're seeing on the top of your bars. There are a lot of variables that determine whether you're going to get soda ash or not. So we're going to discuss those variables. One other type of soda ash that I think I've seen a couple of times, but I didn't know what it was at the time, was soda ash that actually goes all through the bar of soap. These soaps will feel crumbly and like they just don't feel right. That can also be soda ash as it works its way through an entire batch of soap. So let's talk about what can you do to give your soaps the best chance of preventing soda ash in the first place. So first of all, what causes soda ash? For us, soda ash is a seasonal phenomenon. We will get soda ash in the summer much more readily than we do in the winter. We live in Iowa, so that means the summers are hot and humid, but the winters are pretty cold and dry. So when there's more humidity in the air, when we're running the air conditioning in the house to try to combat the heat and the humidity, that's when we're going to get soda ash more in the summer. In the winter, the house is drier, the whole environment is drier, and we don't tend to get soda ash near as much there. So you might notice that your soda ash has a seasonality to it, especially if you live in a climate where one season is pretty warm and humid and the other ones are different. So that's one thing. The temperature and the humidity of the area that you are putting your soaps in to dry, where they're curing, that will impact the soda ash. Not only, seasonally, but also just what's the humidity in your home. You may find that if your home tends to be high humidity a lot of the time, that having a dehumidifier in that area will help just keep the humidity level down and just help keep that soda ash from being quite so prominent, I guess. Also, when you're pouring your soaps at a super thin trace, if you're trying to get a real delicate swirl or you're trying to do a lot of work with the soap in the mold, when you've poured it at a very thin trace, those soaps will tend to get more soda ash than others. If you think about it, the lye is more active yet because the soap is so thin. It's just going to have a greater tendency of getting soda ash. Also, if you like to soap cool, meaning you like your soaping temperatures to be on the lower end. Ideal is between 100 and 120. If you're trying to do your soap making on the lower end of that, or even below 100, you will also have a greater chance of getting soda ash on that batch. Now, what can we do to prevent it? Well, it would be like the opposite of those things. Warm up your soap batter. Soap more at 120. 120 seems to be that good temperature when everything is combined in your soap batter. If that batter is near 120, then you're going to have less of a likelihood of getting soda ash. Also, if you pour your soap at more of a medium trace rather than a thin trace. Now that won't be possible depending on what you're trying to do with the look of your soap, but pouring it more at medium trace is going to also give you a better chance of not having a pretty sturdy layer of soda ash on top of those bars. Again, the ideal temperature is between 115 or 100 and 120, but if you can keep your soaping temperature a little warmer, that's going to help as well. All right, so those are the things. Oh, also, once you have your soap poured, you have the top formed, however you want to do that, you're done creating the soap, using a spray bottle with the high 90s kind of rubbing alcohol, not just your standard rubbing alcohol, because that's more like 76%. You want like 99% rubbing alcohol. For around us, Walmart carries it, so it's not difficult to find. But if you can spritz the top of your soap right after you pour it, and then like 15 minutes later, that will also reduce the likelihood of soda ash forming, because you formed a barrier between the soap, the active lye, and the humidity in the air. So those are things you can do to help prevent the soda ash. Next, let's talk about what do you do when it came anyway, because that happens to everybody as well. Before we dive into strategies for removing the soda ash, there are a couple other things that you can consider if you are not making milk soaps. These don't work for me because I make exclusively goat milk soap, but there are some other things to consider. If you soap and use a water discount between 5 and 10%, that can help reduce soda ash. If you also reduce your super fat down to 0 to 3%, that can also work as well. You may also cover the soap. That can help reduce the look of it, or force your soaps into gel phase. That will all help reduce the look of soda ash. Now, for me and for milk soaps, none of those strategies work, which is why we were looking at the other strategies to begin with, just because these don't work, because milk soaps don't like heat. You can't reduce the amount of milk in there. That'll make the milk scorch. We already have a pretty low super fat because the goat milk has a lot of fat in it, so that's where we get our moisturizing. And if you cover the soap or try to force it into gel phase, the milk will kind of get funny. It just doesn't like the extra heat. So those are strategies if you're doing soap making with distilled water. If you're doing milk soaps, those aren't going to work for you either. So let's go ahead now and talk about what do you do when you've got soda ash and you need to remove it. I did some research and I found a list of about 6 different strategies that you can try. I have a favorite, but I'm going to show you all of them and you can experiment with them as well. So the first thing is to take your bar and just to give it like a little bit of a wash. So I have just water here and my little rag, and you can start to just wash the top of the bar. This will take some doing. It'll take some, you'll want to get it pretty wet, but that will eventually, you can see how the soda ash is coming off the higher bits of the design there. There we go. You can see how the soda ash came off the high parts. Now with this strategy, it might be kind of hard to get in all the little cracks and things and to get that to be uniform all the way. But that is one strategy for removing the soda ash. Another one I heard is to use a nylon. A nylon is going to give you just a little bit of exfoliating for the bar. Again, you're going to want to get it kind of wet. I'm not sure if this is going to go faster than the rag, like which strategy is going to give you the quickest effect. Actually, this is working pretty quickly. You're going to have the same issue where it's going to be hard to get into every little crack and form of the design. But yeah, that worked pretty quickly. So using a nylon and just some water could also be a way to help reduce the look of the soda ash there. Now, I need a different rag. I forgot my other rag would be wet. One other recommendation was to try white vinegar. So we're going to give that a try here on just a different clean rag. All right, here we go. all of these strategies, there's a couple spots there that it came off real quick. The rest wants to be a little more stubborn. I want to put my soapy rag back in my vinegar there. Okay, there we go. Okay, there. I had my rag a little bit more wet, and it does look like the vinegar is going to dissolve the soda ash a bit better. But all of these strategies have that same issue where getting down into the cracks of the soap is going to be a challenge. But maybe you don't. Maybe you leave it kind of like that. It's got some highlighting then. Yeah, it just depends on what you like there. You do need to watch, though, as you're using the vinegar or the water, make sure that you wipe off any drips that go down the side of the bar, because those will leave marks, and you don't want your bar to look like it was wet. So that's that one. Let me go through my list here a minute. Yeah, I think we've kind of covered all of those. An obvious one that you could use is to use a shaver. This is just a carrot peeler, but you could always just physically remove the pieces of soap that have soda ash on them. Now, again, this is going to be hard to get into every little spot, but you could leave it as a fun design like that. Maybe make stripes or something else with it, and just use the soda ash as a design part of the top of your soap. So that's another option. Now, my favorite option, though, is to use a clothing steamer. This is, like an iron, except it just produces steam. There we go. And this is a simple way to get rid of the soda ash. It gets into the cracks in different places of the soap as well. But you can also do a single bar, or you could do an entire batch, like an entire loaf all at once. If you find that you have a loaf, like an entire loaf of soap that's just covered in soda ash, you could do it before you cut the bars, and that will get the soda ash on all of them, and then cut it. So this one now, you can see, okay, this is compared to how it was. So it's done a pretty good job of at least lightening the soda ash all over the bar. And then this is compared to the one I did with the water. So it's actually done a more thorough job. It's gotten in all the little cracks and calluses. It's not cracks and calluses. Oh my goodness, that's cracks and crevices. That's what I meant to say. But you'll see there's still a little bit on there, but I don't mind if there's a tiny bit. It kind of gives the top of your soap kind of a frosted look, but it's a little more muted that way, having done the steamer. So with all of the different things that I've done here, there we go. It's just examples of different ways you can remove the soda ash. And if you need to purchase a clothing steamer, these are not expensive. I think this one was $30 at Walmart, so not a big deal there. The last idea for dealing with the soda ash on the top of your bars is to just leave it. I have had multiple customers come to me and say how much they love the painting that I've done on the top of my bars, or how they love that frosted look on the bar. And I just don't say anything. I don't tell them that wasn't the plan. I don't really like it. If you don't tell them, they will never know. So you can also decide that, you know what, this is just part of soap making, and I'm going to just decide to be okay with the soda ash on my bars. And if you don't say anything, they will never know. In our next video, we're going to talk about packaging soaps. What do you need to do to soaps that you are giving to someone in an in-person sale? What do you need to do to those soaps so that they are like not getting all over each other, and your customer has a handy way to carry them? And what is different about preparing those soaps to be shipped in an order that you are going to mail out in some way? So we will talk about that in our next video. I will see you there.